Alright mates, let's look at your notes for the 25th of September. Let's start off with vocabulary and sentence construction. Alright, number one, grit. So what is grit? It's tiny pieces of stone or sand. You can see them lying around the road on construction sites and all that stuff where they're making buildings. And grit is also the courage that makes you do something difficult or unpleasant for a long period of time. Right, so that's the deep, dirty courage inside you. Dirty as in mud, how mud is dirty. So you got that courage inside you that makes you do something unpleasant for a long period of time. Right, and grit is also a verb. Spread grit on something, so grit the road. So spread grit onto the road because there is ice or something on that, so you don't want the cars to slip and crash. So grit, verb, grit, noun, and grit your teeth is an idiom. Press your upper and lower teeth tightly against each other to express a feeling. Alright, so grit your teeth, so it's idiom and it's literal as well, so I've just put it as an idiom. Alright, so let's see some examples of number one. So he gritted his teeth in anger and frustration. Silence, he commanded through gritted teeth. Alright, so number two, crunch. We did crunch last week or a couple of weeks ago, something like that. So crunch is a noun. A noise made when crunching something, a noise like something hard being pressed or crushed. Scrunch is a harsher crunch, right? Like I explained to you, it's a harsher crunch, it's a harder crunch. A noise made when scrunching something. When you walk on gravel, that's an example of scrunch. And clasp or clasp, grip something tightly, hold something tightly in your hands, or something that holds something else tightly. So I showed you that clasp, we saw a metal clasp. Alright, and compel is a verb, force someone to do something, often because it's a requirement. It need not be a requirement, but often because it's a requirement. Alright, so examples, the bottle is clasped shut, so it's tightly shut. Alright, it's been clasped shut. Alright, clasp the glass tightly, the father warned the little girl, or else it'll slip and shatter. Shatter is, you know what is shatter is, break into small pieces. So he was compelled to pay alimony. So check out this word, alimony. In some parts of the states they say alimony. Okay, so if you go there and they say alimony, that's correct for that, but usually it's alimony. Alright, sometimes just because it's shaped like a dollop or looks like a dollop, they call it a dollop. So we did dollop last weekend, then I explained to you, sometimes just because the shape is of a dollop, they call it a dollop, even though it might be a tiny amount, but it's a dollop. Sometimes they call that a dollop as well. Alright, so number three, affinity, a feeling of understanding something or someone and where they are coming from. Not literally, alright, not where they're literally coming from, or where are you coming from, I'm coming from the mall. No, not that one. Where they're coming from, where their thoughts or where their feelings are coming from. What's the source of their thoughts or their feelings or their emotions, that coming from. Alright, so connection with someone's thoughts or feelings without any romance. Usually it does not involve any romantic feelings or anything like that, but it's a feeling of understanding. So confirmed bachelor, what's a confirmed bachelor? A person who is unmarried and plans to remain that way. So I explained to you why that happens, and they're called confirmed. You know what is confirmed? Bachelors. Alright, so flag is a verb, become tired, weak, less enthusiastic about something. Flag. And tally, calculate the total, add up, match the total with someone or something else's total or account of things. What is account of things? The way or the things that they say happened, that's their account. Okay, first he went there, number two he did this, number three she told him that. That's the account of events, that's the account of things. Alright, so first example is 5 plus 5 plus 5 is 14. It's just an example, so you can say this doesn't tally, it does not add up. Something's missing, something is wrong, it does not tally. What you are saying does not tally with Rebecca's recollection of events. So as per Rebecca, this and this happened, but as per you, something else happened. So these two accounts of things, accounts of events, accounts of occurrences do not tally. Both of you are speaking about the same things, but they do not match up. Something is wrong, something is missing, it does not match, it does not tally. Alright, he bought a new video game, but his interest flagged only after a few months. So he bought a new video game, he thought he would be really excited, but after a few months he discovered, hey, I don't enjoy these video games anymore. So his interest flagged, he does not want it anymore, so he sold it or whatever. So I have an affinity with all train drivers. It's just a sentence. Suppose somebody has worked on trains and they understand how the other train drivers, how they feel, what their emotions are, why they say or why do they do the things that they do, or why do they say the things that they say, why do they feel the things that they feel. You have an affinity with all train drivers. It can be with anything. It can be with dolphins, it can be with dogs, it can be with writers, poets, whatever. So it's just an example, it's just a sentence to make you understand how to use affinity. Alright, number 4, wires crossing. It's an idiom, so misunderstanding. So when you misunderstand, especially instructions or agreements, information getting confused, that's wires crossing. So I showed you what the wires are. Why do they call them wires? The neurons and all that stuff. Alright, and lines crossing is a noun. So when telephone lines cross or get mixed up, lines crossing can have a few more meanings as well. We'll cover them eventually, but for now we'll do when telephone lines get crossed or mixed up. Of course, these days nobody's using landlines anymore. So, but until just a few years ago, it was still used. Right. So many secrets have leaked out, or many secrets have been revealed simply because the lines got crossed. So I explained what happens. You're talking to someone and suddenly somebody else comes on the line, and sometimes they tell you, sometimes they don't even tell you, but they can hear your conversation. Alright, so that has happened a lot. So many secrets or many things have just been leaked out because the lines got crossed. Alright, my mother's and father's wires crossed. Wires got crossed and they both forgot to pick my sister and I from the mall. So sometimes you can use me. I told you this a couple of years ago when to use I, when to use me. So both are correct. I is in fact use I if you go, especially go for the British tests and all, use I, and use me in casual conversations. Alright, so his wires are crossed as usual, and that is so true, isn't it? Your wires are always crossed. Alright. Part B, let's go on to some sentences that you have constructed, or that you constructed. Right, number 1, he became a confirmed bachelor. Right, nothing wrong with that. Excuse me. My friend and I met a guy that make our wires crossed. I am fuming after reading such a sentence. You know why I am fuming. Does not make any sense. Totally incorrect. The tense is wrong. The usage of words is wrong. Right. So now let's look at the improved sentence. My friend and I met a guy, and that guy made our wires crossed. Okay, the tense is alright, but what's the meaning of made our wires crossed? Alright. My friend and I met a guy, and that guy crossed our wires. Okay, now it makes much more sense. It makes some sense, in fact, finally. Alright, and my friend and I met a guy who crossed our wires. Instead of saying, and that guy, he did this, just say, who crossed our wires. Alright, now it's good, but how did he cross your wires? Wires cross on your own. I mean, what did he do? It's not something literal. Alright. It's not something that somebody can open your head and open your brain and do it. Alright, so is the sentence correct? But as I told you, it can have some other meaning, some other funny meanings. Alright, so I felt an affinity towards her after reading her poem. Alright, so I felt an affinity with her after, instead of towards, use with her after reading her poem. Very good. My mother commended me for getting 11 out of 10 in maths. Excellent. That's a very good sentence. And alright, so it's been happening, I guess. Alright, number 5, she should be commended for working hard. Alright, so she should be commended for her hard work, like I told you. Instead of saying for working hard, for her hard work. Alright, you're commending her for the work that she has done. not for doing something, for the work that she has done. Alright, so I have an affinity with my sister. It's not a good sentence, it's correct, but it's not good because you have more than affinity with your sister. You have affections, you have love with your or towards your sister. Alright, so I have an affinity with my sister is correct, but it's not a very good sentence. It does not make much sense. In case you really hate your sister, then you have to mention that fact. Although my sister and I do not see eye to eye, I still have an affinity with her. Now we know. Now we are not assuming natural sisterly love. Alright, now we know, okay, there's some real problems between you and your sister. These are all examples, they do not relate to real life. So some of them do, but not the harsher ones. Alright, so my friend is very affinity, and these are these MCE sentences these days. Trash. What's the meaning of my friend is very affinity? What's the meaning of that? Affinity is a noun. Is very affinity. What is very noun? It does not make any sense. What you are trying to say that your friend is very affinitive. What you want to say is that, but at the moment and even in the future, affinitive will never be an adjective. Alright. It's not a word, it's not an adjective, it's not even an official adjective. Even if you use it with your friends, it does not make any sense because affinity is just a feeling and it's not a quality. An adjective has to be a quality. He is good, he is fast, he is slow, that's his quality. Affinity is not a quality. You cannot be affinitive towards everyone. Alright, it's just a noun. You have it with some people, with some things, with some situations only. It's not a general quality. You cannot have it all the time with you. Alright, so it's not a word. I don't think it will ever be a word. It will never be an adjective because of what I just said. Alright, so keep that in mind. But that's what you were trying to say. You were trying to say that your friend is very affinitive. You should have said my friend has affinity with something, whatever that thing or whatever that situation or whatever that concept was. Alright, I hope that was clear. And let's do the last part, parts of speech. Nothing much today. Grit, noun, and grit, verb. Crunch, noun, and crunch, verbs. Crunch, noun, and crunch, verbs. So these are number 2 and 3 are all onomatopoeia or onomatopoeia. Alright, so compel, verb. Compelling, adjective, compellingly. Adverb, it was a compelling situation. Alright, the situation was compelling. So now we have a noun and an adjective. So now it makes perfect sense. Unlike this sentence over here. Right. Now if you say it was a compelling situation, that's understandable. That's perfectly fine. Alright, number 5 is clasp, and clasp, both noun and verb. And number 6 again, tally and tally, both noun and verb. So today all these parts of speech have been very similar. In fact, all except 4 have been the same. The same word is used as a noun and a verb. Alright, that's all for today's notes. Write your notes now down and watch your older notes, watch the other batches videos, watch the other videos that I've put up, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye, and have a good one. Bye bye.